With so many paths and practices, how can we trust what is being presented under the banner of Hinduism? Both Christianity and Islam build their faith on historical records. Any knowledge of what Jesus said and did has not come from eyewitnesses but from sources written decades after by unknown people, sources which contain significant discrepancies. All knowledge of what Muhammad did and said has come from hadith, put together some 200 years after the Prophet's death, and these sources were used and controlled by an Arab empire. God's revelation for the Abrahamic religions is not based on any first-hand information, but on questionable historical evidence from thousands of years ago.
You can't prove the past. You can only give evidence for the past, and some evidence is more certain than other evidence.
Truth in Hinduism, however, is ultimately not founded on anything historical. In fact, one could disprove every historical event and Hinduism would still stand. This is because truth is not an event, but the highest experience of life, where one realizes their true relationship with God. By experience, we do not mean something dependent on a mental, emotional, or even intellectual process. It is a transcendent state of consciousness beyond this physical reality. It cannot be understood with logic or even effectively articulated in words. This concept of God realization is not unique to Hinduism, it is universal to mankind. There have been many personalities who have reached these transcendent states despite the dogma and culture they were in. Christian saints, Sufi mystics, and even those of no real tradition have throughout history declared their realization in the language and context of their time.
Who am I and who or what is that self that I cannot live with? Then that thought brought about the separation, and then there was an I, and then this unhappy me was somehow recognized as not real.
But how do we attain such a realization? In order to achieve the supreme goal of life, like science, Hinduism proposes the hypothesis, lays down the method of testing the hypothesis, and then leaves it to the individual to draw their own conclusions. The whole culture of Hindu practice rests on this principle, from rituals which manifest wealth to practices and techniques which elevate one on their spiritual path. One is invited to engage in practice and witness its transformative effects. Hinduism ultimately offers the prospect of first-hand realization of God and not just vain beliefs. The different rishis and masters have declared their experience of the ultimate. They have laid down the system of philosophy and practice behind it, and this allows any seeking individual to find that truth for themselves. So not only is it first-hand, it is reproducible to everyone and universal to all of mankind. Although the truth is accessible to all, it is important to make clear that not everybody is ready to achieve the supreme state of God realization. Many, if not most, do not have the desire to embark on a spiritual path.
You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged.
For most, success and prosperity in the material world is seen as the ultimate goal of life. As a result, many people are unlikely to take up spiritual practice in any meaningful way. As Krishna says in the Gita, out of many thousands among men, one may endeavour for perfection, and of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. Unlike Abrahamic religions, people who do not seek truth are not condemned. Hinduism understands there are different stages of spiritual growth, and people will engage with the tradition at their own level. We must remember, God realization is not a part-time affair. It is not one transient experience among many others. It is the complete core transformation of who we are, an unimaginable state that dissolves everything else. Hence, such a state can take lifetimes of spiritual evolution to attain. The progress each soul makes is carried on from one life to the next. Hence, the reason why some may be born innately seeking truth, and others not at all. The next question that may spring to mind is, if there is one ultimate experience of God, then why is there so much diversity within Hinduism? Why are there so many masters speaking of their experience in such radically different and contradictory ways? As mentioned in the first video, the Rig Veda states, Ekam Sat Vipraha Bahuda Vedanti. The truth is one, but the wise speak of it in many different ways. For example, some, like Shankaracharya, have put together complex philosophical systems explaining that the ultimate state is where we realize there is no difference between us and God. The world is essentially unreal, and beyond the apparent multiplicity that we can see, there is absolute oneness. Practice is about contemplating the great revealed truths such as Aham Brahmasmi, I am God. There are others, for example, like Ramanuja and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who belong to the Bhakti traditions, and they see the ultimate state as being completely surrendered to God and reaching the highest states of unconditional love. Practice for them is about performing acts of devotional service, such as mantra chanting and temple worship. The pursuit of truth is like climbing a mountain. There are many ways to get to the top, and each path we tread will be a different journey, with different challenges and opportunities. Choosing which of the many paths to follow is essentially what suits the individual. For some, God as an impersonal reality beyond the physical universe resonates deeply with the way they see life. For others, it may be quite different. God must be a glorious personality that we can have a loving relationship with. Some may be attracted to the majestic personality of Vishnu. Some enjoy God as the meditative and merciful aspect of Lord Shiva, while others view the Supreme Personality as a mother figure who constantly nurtures and tends to her children. Hinduism acknowledges and celebrates difference, and it is for each individual to decide which connects most with them. Without this initial connection, one cannot embark with any real sincerity on any path to truth. Superficial reasoning is not enough for one to give themselves fully to the pursuit of God. One must have an inner attraction to the perceived goal that propels them along their path. So it is the experience of different masters and gurus that underpins Hinduism. They have reached the top of the mountain, and from there they shout down the experience and method of how to gain what they have. The way up the mountain can be very different depending on which path one takes. Their teachings and interpretations of scripture are a roadmap which describe the path and, most importantly, identify the different signposts along the way to the top. The signposts act to instill confidence in the seeker that they are on the right path. But scripture and teaching is just one aid along the path. Another source of authority is that of the spiritual master. A living, enlightened master is one who embodies the highest experience and therefore becomes an authority in guiding the spiritual seeker along the way. He has not only realized the truth, but also knows what is needed for that individual to reach that truth. Whereas scripture may provide a general direction, the master is one who knows the right prescription for each disciple. The exact role of the guru will be discussed in future videos. When looking for truth, therefore, Hinduism offers both scripture and the master as authorities. But again, we must state that the spiritual path is experiential. As a result, it is one's own personal revelation that will also provide answers. As one grows and evolves on the path, the ability to discriminate between our lesser limited nature and our higher divine nature becomes clearer. Wisdom and insight begins to dawn. Our consciousness develops and we become more responsible for our development. Both Christianity and Islam reject that we can rely on our own personal authority. Authority for them must come exclusively from scripture. Human beings cannot be trusted. Like a child in a sweet shop, they declare that if we make ourselves our own authority, then we will descend into chaos. But the reality is, we cannot get away from relying on our own authority. No matter how much scripture we have, we will always have our own interpretation of it. Hence why we see so much variety in Christianity and Islam. There are extreme and liberal forms of both religions. Even to choose any religion in the first place, we must trust our own conviction. Personal revelation is part and parcel of the experience of life. To an immature seeker, truth needs to be black and white. There needs to be clear boundaries that stop them giving in to their lower nature. There needs to be rewards which entice them into action and consequences which instill a fear of stepping out of line. But to the sincere, mature seeker who has a genuine thirst for truth, such policing is not necessary. The longing for the spiritual goal is what naturally causes one to stay true to the path. The reward is not material pleasures in paradise, but attaining God himself. And the punishment is not torment in hellfire, but the prospect of failing to attain God at all. In conclusion, we can see that Abrahamic religions are theologies which present their case for truth by incessantly trying to piece together historical evidence. The God who made the stars, the galaxies, heavens and earth, who designed the human body and all of its processes, apparently didn't think to communicate directly with humanity. Instead, the evidence of his message was left to be confirmed or denied by professors at universities and through vague carbon dating techniques. No Christian or Muslim can know for sure that the events of their founder actually happened as they believe. At best, they can be inferred, speculated about, and followed with a leap of faith. Hinduism, however, builds its case on the results of spiritual practice. It offers first-hand direct experience of the ultimate reality. Whereas Abrahamic religions insist that they have all the answers to truth in their book, Hinduism often does the opposite. Using spiritual techniques, it encourages one to abandon the limited dogma of the mind, leaving one in a pure seeking or surrendered state, a state that is ripe for the direct realization of God himself. Many thanks for listening.